Good morning, I'm Noe Garcia with Texas Plant Soil Lab. Today I want to discuss how to build a little compost tea brewer. Earlier we saw how we did a commercial batch, over 150 gallons compost tea. I'm here this morning with Harlan, and we're going to see how we can build a little compost tea brew for him. Notice how you got this pump going with the water this morning, Harlan. What you want to do is want to aerate the water to dechlorinate any chlorine, since you're using tap water. If you're using RO water or bottled water, you wouldn't have to do this extra step, but the reason you want to do this is otherwise the chlorine can't kill the bacteria that we're trying to accomplish or multiply in this tea.
About how long does it take to drive it out?
Usually a couple hours. The other thing you could do is just leave it open overnight without the pump running, and that'll achieve the same thing. Preferably, I like to run the pump a couple hours or so, and that will drive all that chlorine out of the water. Some key ingredients that we need to use here is, of course, our bucket, a nice clean 5-gallon bucket that you can get at your local hardware store. A lot of people have these in their garages. The other thing is it's a aquarium pump. I'm using this particular pump, has 2 ports on there, and that's real important because we're running 2 different aerators in our setup here. Of course, you can buy this at your local hardware store or your
That's not recirculating the water, that's just pumping air.
That's just pumping air, yes, because we have to keep a high levels of oxygen, dissolved oxygen in the water, so the bacteria can multiply. Okay. The other thing is we're using these air stones, blue air stones that you can find at any aquarium store. As you can see, it's just diffusing the air into the water. And then we also have, let's see if I can get these out. These larger, this is a 4-inch ceramic diffuser. Now the reason I go with these cost a little bit more than your typical blue air stones, but these diffuse the air a lot better and last longer. So in the long run, you'll be saving money. I know these cost usually around $4 or $5 compared just to a few dollars on the typical blue ones, but they do a lot better job. Okay. The other thing you're going to need is paint strainer. You can find this at your local hardware store, Home Depot or Lowe's or anywhere.
Okay.
And that does the equipment for your compost tea brewer. Now I have drilled a few holes here on the side, sort of as retainers for those tubes that you're running into the bucket here. Now let's go and talk about the ingredients here. Of course, we're using about 1 pound of compost. In this case, we're using a vermicompost. It's actually worm castings.
Where did you get those?
These you can buy at your local nursery store. Your local Home Depot, Lowe's will carry, and they call it vermicompost. Or you can use any compost, or a combination, probably even better. The reason you might want to use different combinations is for the diversity of the microbes and nematodes and fungi that a compost might have. Rule of thumb for we're brewing 4 gallons is about 1 pound, which is about a Ziploc quart-sized bag full of compost. You might want to alternate when you're brewing from one month to the other, or do a combination of different composts. The other thing that's real important too is your food sources for the bacteria. In this case, we're using a little bit of fish.
Where do you get the fish oil? Fish oil? Is that what?
Yeah, this is a fish oil. There's several. There's a hydrolyzed fish, which is a cold pressed, which is good for high fungal numbers in your teas. And there's also a fish emulsion, which is oil pressed, which is heat treated. That will give you a high bacteria. And most plants prefer a high bacteria. Trees and shrubs prefer a fungal. So any fish solution that you can get at your local nursery or will be good. The other thing that we're adding here is humic acid. As well, you can find at your local nursery store. Or another substitute for humic acid is molasses.
Just ordinary molasses?
Just your ordinary blackstrap molasses. In fact, the blackstrap molasses you can find at your local grocery store. So now the only thing on using blackstrap molasses is works great during the winter. Now, if you have a hot summer where you have high temperatures over 90 degrees, I really don't recommend using molasses. So that's why in this case I'm using humic acid. The reason is you give them too much of a food source, you get a high population of microbes, and that will bring your oxygen down and you actually kill your bacteria instead of growing it.
They grow too fast.
They grow too fast. So with humic acid, you don't have that problem. Of course, winter, perfect time to use the molasses. You can still use the molasses in summer, but not to brewing. You can use it when you go out and apply the compost tea. So now let's go and go ahead and start, get some compost. Now, of course, you can use your own compost you make at home as well, the good source. Or if you don't have it, you could go at your local nursery and use that compost and just pour it in the strainer. Like so here. Now, what you want to do, get your 2 small air stones here, place them inside the strainer there, compost, and what we're trying to accomplish there is keep your compost in suspension. The other thing is we have a piece of rope here that we're going to use to tie that top portion of it and keep the air stones in there. Not only that, but we're going to use the handle of this bucket to keep that strainer up in suspension as well. Just tie a little knot here and keep it up there.
Well, no, could you use the ceramic ones in there too?
Yeah, you can. Just depends on the size of the paint strainer you get. They sell smaller ceramic ones as well, but they will do just fine inside the bag. Now remember, we got your 2 ceramic downs at the bottom, keeping all that oxygen up there.
But you need some in the water and some inside the...
Exactly. It's real important to keep some inside that paint strainer with the compost so we can keep that compost
bubbling up.
bubbling
Okay.
instead of staying stagnant. The other thing is the oxygen from underneath helping push that compost top as well.
Okay.
Now we're going to come here and grab the fish. Now we're going to take an ounce of fish. And pour it in here. And that's a food source for the bacteria. Might want to rinse that cup out a little bit. Then we take an ounce of the humic acid or the molasses, the blackstrap molasses we talked about.
Same thing, 1 ounce?
1 ounce, exactly.
Blackstrap molasses?
Blackstrap molasses or humic. Okay. Now we're using the 1 ounce of humic acid or the blackstrap molasses. Pour it into solution as well. You can rinse that out a little bit. And you might want to use a strainer and stir it around a little bit just to get some of that fish and
You mix it up a little bit, huh?
exactly. And ready to go. Now,
Yeah. Let nature take its course.
exactly.
Nature does all the work.
Exactly. We just help it along a little bit. Prefer to do it around 12, 15 hours, 18 hours. As long as you got some oxygen to the microbes, you can keep them alive. Of course, the other thing, you don't want to place this under direct sunlight outside in the middle of the day, because the UV light can actually kill the bacteria you're trying to propagate here. So just a little few tips. The other thing is, best time to apply this microbes is early in the morning or late in the afternoon.
That's so that you don't get the bright sunlight to kill the microbes.
Exactly. And that's also to maximize when your leaves, the stomata is open, which allows oxygen to transpirate from the leaf. You can maximize the efficiency of these microbes during their work. So we'll let it sit overnight and come back tomorrow once it's ready and start applying it.
Well, thank you very much. Been a very instructive teacher this morning.
Well, you're welcome. I'll see you tomorrow. Morning, Harlan.
Morning, Noe. Chilly mornings to be doing this, isn't
It
it?
sure is. Well, let's take a look at your compost tea here.
Bubbling merrily away, isn't it?
Sure is, and that's what you want to see. You want to keep that bacteria alive, and notice that smell and color. Has that earthy, fishy smell to it, and that's what you want to accomplish on a good compost tea. Let me turn off the power to that here, and let's go over the applications. Now you got several options here. One, of course, is your watering can. Now this is a concentrated compost tea that you need to dilute down. With that option, I would recommend doing a 1-to-1 dilution, meaning 1 gallon of compost tea to 1 gallon of water.
Can I use city water for that?
That is fine. That's no problem. And that's for, of course, for small areas. Your pots. Notice you got a lot of small indoor plants. Works wonderful on those plants as well. Another option, of course, for your bigger areas, your lawns, landscape, shrubbery, and trees, is using a hose-in sprayer like so. Now, this one I would highly recommend using a 6 ounce per gallon. Now, this is concentrated solution, so you don't want to dilute your compost tea with a hose-in sprayer. You want to use this as is.
Can I use it? How many times a year do I have to use this, or should I use it?
During the growing season, you can use it on a monthly basis. No problem. During winter, it's a good idea, especially when we're having these cold weather, to prevent some frosting of plants.
Should have had it a couple of days ago when it frosted.
Would have been great.
How much do you put on when you squirt it around? You sort of spray it till it's dripping, is that the old rule, I think?
Exactly. That's what you want to do. Just, where you get that nice mist and dripping off of the plants, it's a good rule of thumb. Of course, on the soil, you want to go a little bit heavier for a soil application than you do a foliar application. But you can wet down all your plants and trees and so forth. What you want to do is take the watering can here and fill up the first gallon with some compost tea here. Once we get that first gallon in here, you want to fill up the other gallon with water, and it'll be ready for us to start using on your petunias here. Might be getting close to that 1 gallon mark, huh?
I think we'd take one more at least, maybe 2. Okay, a little more.
Harlan, this should do the final gallon here.
Yep, that's it. Good enough.
Now let's go to the water hose and fill up the rest with some tap water.
Okay.
All right, Harlan, let's go ahead and start applying that compost in the watering can over your lettuce here.
Enough?
That'll be good. That should do it. Well, Harlan, we're done with the watering can application. Now let's do a hose-in sprayer application.
Okay.
Where you want to do about a 6 ounce setting on there per gallon. Now here you do want to use a concentrated compost tea. So we want to fill this container up with the compost tea here. Remember, this will not be diluted down like you had on your watering can application.
How often should I put this on?
During the growing season, you want to do it about on a monthly basis or so. Winter, of course, you might want to do it late fall, early spring, or if you see a frost coming on, it'd be a good idea to do it that day. Now, you're talking about, say, on a 5,000 square feet area in your lawn, possibly using about a gallon or so.
Gee, it's not very much, is it?
No, it's not. It goes a long way. So let's go to the hose over here and start spraying your lawn. Okay, Harlan, here you just want to do a nice even application over your grass here. Like we talked about, rule of thumb, it's just, nice little, till it comes to runoff of that leaf blade, and try to get everything you can. You can get on your shrubs as well while you're doing your lawn and your trees. That way you can get a dose of that compost tea on everything. All right, Harlan, let's go over the cleaning of this compost tea brewer, which is very important.
You have to do this after you make every batch?
Exactly. What you want to do is just pour out all the debris that you have in there with some water. You'll have some sand at the bottom and so forth, so try to clean it as thoroughly as possible. The reason why it's so important is that you might have some bacteria left over there, which can cause to have future batches lower the quality of that tea. So what I recommend using is a 16-ounce bottle of hydrogen peroxide, and just pouring that in there to disinfect all your gear in there, including your strainer. You must, of course, rinse out as much of that compost you have in there as possible. What we're trying to accomplish here is sort of disinfect or sterilize the all your gear that you use in making the compost tea. Fill up a little bit of water and make sure everything's in solution, and you can leave it sitting there for about an hour or so. After the hour, you want to dispose of that dilution and just water everything off and set it aside and ready to go for your next batch.
Is it best to store it right after, not before you make the next batch?
Yeah, if you're going to wait a month or so, it's tough to remember if you did sterilize it or not. So I always like to do it soon after. That way you don't forget.
But should you sterilize it again before you start up?
No. Once you've sterilized it, it'll be clean until your next batch.
Okay.
So I would definitely put a cover on this, put the lid back on the bucket, and keep any trash going in there collecting. But that's about the only thing you have to do.
Good.
Harlan, we're all done here applying your compost tea.
What's the advantage of using compost tea versus just spreading compost on the yard?
Well, the advantage is that you're building life here. We're actually creating or multiplying exponentially the amount of benefit